The dawn broke over the jungle with a sly, teasing glow, as if Kayak himself were smirking at your expense, knowing the trials that awaited. You woke on your hammock, sand gritty between your teeth, the faint scent of copal resin clinging to your elbows, and the absurd weight of your sandals' newfound sanctity, a ribbon tied in the night by some overzealous priestling proclaiming it the foot of forgiveness. Bennu sprawled nearby, munched onion flatbread, gesturing at the ribbon with a grin. "They're calling it a cosmic pardon," he said, crumbs scattering like tiny offerings. "Someone kissed it while you slept." You hurled the sandal at him, missing by a handspan, and muttered, "It's a foot. I stepped on oil." "Divine oil," he countered, eyes twinkling with mischief. "Your foot's a relic now." The morning's deceptive calm shattered with a scream. Not the usual village cacophony of roosters grinding maize or a howler monkey's tantrum, but a primal, sky-shattering wail of panic. You stumbled barefoot into the courtyard, blinking into a dim blue haze. The moon had vanished, not set, not hidden, but gone, a perfect void where its sacred glow should have shone like a jade coin blessed by Ixchel. The village was a cauldron of chaos. A child dropped a calabash, tamales rolling like abandoned dreams. Your neighbor chanted prayers with the fervor of a man expecting a jaguar god's wrath. The shaman, face smeared with black dye, looked ready to wrestle a celestial serpent. You knew the truth. Chi ibal kuhul, the devouring of the sacred, when sun or moon fell prey to an unseen cosmic beast. And who bore the blame when the heavens threw a tantrum? The astronomer? You. Not yet the master, mind you, just an apprentice, a fetcher of strings and watcher of shadows. But Elder Itzum, the village's grizzled stargazer, had been casting you the look, the one that said, "I'm old, I loathe crowds, and if I meet my ancestors tomorrow, this is your burden." Itzam emerged from his stone hut, robes askew, hair a storm-tossed palm frond. He squinted at the sky. "It's early," he muttered. "The eclipse?" you asked, heart thudding. "No, my breakfast." He patted his belly, then acknowledged the lunar void. "Oh, that." He turned, eyes sharp as obsidian. "To the caracol, check the shadow marker. If it's aligned, we're only mostly doomed." You sprinted to the observatory, sandals slapping the earth, heart racing like a ritual drum. The caracol rose ahead, a stone marvel, part lighthouse, part beehive, part divine riddle, with slits in its walls that caught starlight like a net woven by the gods. You climbed its winding stairs 2 at a time, entering a cool, silent chamber where a single beam pierced a peephole, slicing across the floor. It landed almost on the carved marker, a finger's width off, perhaps a trick of light, or perhaps your doom etched in stone. You raced back, panting. Itzam sat chewing roasted squash, his face a map of resignation. "Well?" he asked. "It's close," you gasped. "Like your math," he grunted. The plaza swelled with villagers, children clinging to mothers, a flute player butchering a sacred tune, a priest chanting preemptive pleas. The eclipse neared totality, the air heavy as if the sky held its breath. Itzam stretched, robes rustling like dried maize husks. "You," he said, thrusting a woven mat into your arms. "You're with me. To calm the people?" you asked, hopeful. "No," he said, smirking, "to shield me from their tomatoes." He strode into the plaza like a man facing a divine inquisition, you trailing with the mat held like a flimsy ward. He raised a hand, silencing the crowd. "People of this village," Wasub, he intoned, "the moon is devoured, yes, but only for a time." "How long?" a voice shouted. "Depends," Itzam replied, "on whether this one set the Venus markers right last week." Every eye turned to you. You smiled, a brittle, "I hope I didn't doom us all" grin, feeling the weight of 1,000 gazes. Itzam sighed. "Be still. Wait. Watch." The village hushed, the air taut as a strung bow. After agonizing moments, the moon's edge glowed, a sliver of light breaking the darkness. Cheers erupted, panic melting like mist before the sun. The eclipse ended, and with it your chance of a quiet apprenticeship. They thought you'd helped predict it. Next time, they'd expect you to do it deliberately. As the crowd dispersed, Itzam clapped your shoulder. "You're not useless," he said, a compliment sharp as a flint blade. "Now fetch my squash." You obeyed, the caracol's shadow lingering in your mind, a reminder that the stars cared little for your sleep or your sandals. You were part of this place now, its rhythms carved into your bones like glyphs on a stela. And if the heavens demanded another dance, you'd be there, broom, brush, or mat in hand, ready to face the god's next whim. No hero's feast greeted you at dawn, nor even a humble breakfast of maize and cacao. Instead, Elder Itzam thrust a stack of palm leaf calendars and a pointy stick into your hands, his voice sharp as a flint blade. "If you're to stumble into being a sacred sky watcher," he growled, "you'd best start acting like one." Your life now belonged to the caracol, the stone observatory that loomed like a celestial beehive, its walls etched with the secrets of the stars. Not officially, perhaps, but you were voluntold to report at dawn, dusk, and whenever a bird's cry tilted into an ominous key, which in the jungle's cacophony was every other moment. Itzam, your new master, was a figure scholars might dub a genius with a face carved for scowling. For 40 years he'd stared at the heavens until the stars themselves seemed to shrink from his gaze. He had no patience for errors, mismeasurements, or your brain's unfortunate tendency to weave metaphors from beans and stardust rather than numbers. He gestured to a massive stone disk, its surface crawling with glyphs. "This," he grunted, "it is Venus." "That's a rock," you ventured cautiously. His glare could have cracked obsidian. "It represents Venus. When the morning star rises here," he tapped the ground, "you place it there. When it vanishes, here." You nodded. "How do I know when Venus rises?" "Look at the sky." You looked. Clouds blanketed the horizon like a divine prank. "Then guess better," he said, shrugging. Thus began your apprenticeship as the lowliest of the Tzolk'in keepers, the guardians of celestial rhythms tasked with tracking stars, recording patterns, and shooing dancers away from sacred shadow markers. Glamour it was not. Your first task was arranging rocks, dozens of them, each a marker for Venus's rise and fall, needing constant checking, shifting, and protection from stray dogs with no respect for cosmology. By noon, Itzam granted a break, which meant handing you to his cousin, Ixgun, a woman with the warmth of a cactus and the patience of a jaguar stalking inattentive prey. She stood before the long count, a towering pillar carved with glyphs like a celestial ledger. "Try not to ruin it," she said, thrusting pigment-dipped reeds into your hands. "Trace today's date." The glyphs stared back, a tangle of serpentine symbols squabbling over eternity. "Where's the day number, Jiang?" you asked. She sighed, snatched the reed, and marked a square near the pillar's base. "There, 9/16/304. "Is that today?" you asked. "Or someone's birthday," she said, eyes narrowing. "Who knows?" Scholars still debate whether Mayan workers grasped the intricate calendars they tended or merely followed orders like obedient fireflies. You, tracing glyphs with the finesse of a startled tapir, were firmly in the latter camp. By afternoon, you were back in the caracol, tasked with aligning the peephole chamber to the sun's descent. It involved string, sticks, endless squinting, and a margin of error thinner than a hummingbird's wing. You misaligned it by a finger's width. Itzam muttered, "Congratulations, you've delayed the apocalypse by 400 years. Was it sarcasm or prophecy? Exhaustion dulled your curiosity." That evening you were dragged to the sky-watching gathering, a weekly ritual where acolytes sprawled on mats, gazes heavenward, comparing notes under the stars. The younger ones wagered, "The red star rises before the Jaguar constellation tonight," one boasted. "No," another countered, "the rabbit's ear pointed west at dawn, a delay omen." You, meanwhile, fought to keep your eyes open, praying not to drool on the sacred observation mat. Itzam pointed a bony finger skyward. "There, the path." You squinted. "Nothing but clouds." "Is it the path?" you asked. "In 43 days, he said, when Venus returns." "You're tracking 43 days ahead. This is the job." You glanced at your peers, half dozing, some chewing maize, others scratching notes on bark paper. Modern astronomers had telescopes and satellites. These keepers had torches and stones. Yet their calculations held true, mapping the heavens with a precision that humbled the stars themselves. In that moment, something stirred within you. This wasn't just about shadows or stones. It was about listening to the sky's silent pulse, the rhythm of time woven through light and darkness. For a fleeting second you felt it, the cosmic drumbeat thrumming through the jungle. Then a firefly blinked and you mistook it for Mars. Itzam's sigh was a masterpiece of despair. The firefly landed on your nose, and an acolyte with infuriating diligence recorded it in the temple log. By morning it was part of a prayer, your blunder immortalized in sacred verse. The dawn slunk over the jungle with a sly, mocking glimmer, as if Chaak were chuckling at your expense, knowing the chaos that awaited. You woke with sand in your teeth, the faint tang of copal on your skin, and the absurd weight of your sandals' new-found divinity, a ribbon tied in the night, proclaiming it the foot of forgiveness. But there was no time to dwell on sacred footwear, for you were late, again, sprinting barefoot toward the caracol, a dripping bowl of corn gruel in one hand, your half-scrawled bark paper chart flapping in the other like a wounded bird. The saying in your village, "The stars don't move faster just because you're late," was no comfort as you stumbled into the observatory, breathless and sweat-soaked. Elder Itzam sat cross-legged before the peephole chamber, still as a carved stela, his presence woven into the stone itself. He didn't glance at you. "You missed Venus," he said, voice dry as sun-baked maize. "She came early," you wheezed, clutching your side. "She came on time. You came as if chased by bees." He turned, squinting with the weary disappointment of a man who'd seen stars align, but never apprentices. You set your gruel in a corner where a lizard promptly began sampling it with scholarly curiosity. Today's task was to calibrate the caracol's peephole slits, those narrow stone windows that caught celestial whispers, solstices, equinoxes, the dance of stars, shadows with a village's heartbeat. They signaled planting, feasting, or panic. From outside, the caracol was a lumpy turtle of stone. Inside, it was a time machine, its slits aligning sunlight with glyphs like a divine clock. Your job was to track a beam to the double-headed serpent carved on the floor and adjust the marker if it strayed. Moving a marker felt like accusing the gods of sloppy aim. You did it anyway, nudging the stone a hair's breadth. The beam arrived, striking the serpent's tail instead of its mouth. Itsam didn't yell, he muttered, "Congratulations, you've doomed the crops." Panic seized you. In your flailing haste to fix it, you bumped a hanging obsidian disc, a sacred reflector, and it plummeted, shattering with a scream that echoed like a jaguar's cry. Outside, a flock of macaws erupted skyward. Rumors spread faster than smoke. The apprentice broke the sky mirror. "Obsidian holds souls, we're doomed!" He mistook a beetle for Jupiter last week. You spent the morning sweeping shards, muttering apologies to unseen deities. Itsam, unfazed, replaced the disc from a clay jar, labelled "In case of idiots." Then he handed you a carving knife and fresh bark paper. "You're making the eclipse chart," he said, tracing a glyph resembling a turtle with a cosmic headache. "This marks the interval, 177 days. Between what?" you asked, trembling. "Eclipses," he said, shrugging. "We watched for years and counted." Scholars still debate whether the Maya wove their calendars from pure mathematics or ancestral patterns whispered through generations. Either way, the numbers sang true. You traced the glyph, slow and careful under the watchful glare of Ixkun, Itsam's cactus-hearted cousin, who arrived with a cup of atole and a frown. "You're pressing too hard," she snapped. "I'm focused," you countered. "You're mangling it." Itsam waved her off. "Let him ruin a few pages, that's how he learns." Ixkun muttered about the gods' fragile egos and stormed away. You pressed on, and slowly the cycles began to hum in your mind, the moon's waltz, the repeating intervals of 177, 148, 135 days, each a thread in the tapestry of light and shadow. The calendar wasn't just numbers, it was a map of time's heartbeat. That night, Itsam left you alone in Caracol's central chamber. The stars blazed, the moon a silver coin blessed by Ichel. You aligned the peephole with the marker, and, miracle of miracles, it worked. No cracks, no spills, no fireflies mistaken for Mars. You sat for hours, recording each glimmer, the jungle's murmur a soft counterpoint. A distant flute wailed off key. A frog croaked its disapproval. Then, as if scripted by the gods, you saw it. Venus, the morning star, slipping over the horizon like a smug ember. You smiled, realizing you'd spotted it before you were still the fool who toppled bowls and misread glyphs, but tonight you were part of the rhythm, a keeper of the sky's secrets. And if a firefly landed on your nose, destined for the temple log as a divine omen, that was tomorrow's problem. The dawn broke with a sly, conspiratorial shimmer, as if Cha'ak were nudging you awake with a celestial jest. You stirred in your hammock, the taste of sand lingering in your mouth, the faint musk of sacred water on your skin, and the weight of your newly anointed sandal, a ribboned relic dubbed the Foot of Forgiveness. But before you could savor the quiet, A junior skywatcher burst into the caracol, panting as if he'd outrun a jaguar. "The Venus rock is missing," he gasped. You blinked, clutching a half-painted bark sheet. "What Venus rock?" "The one you moved yesterday," he said, eyes wide with accusation. "I moved many rocks," you countered, but he grabbed your arm, dragging you to the marker field. A gaggle of astronomers circled a patch of grass like vultures around a cosmic crime scene, the sun climbing high, its light mocking the absent stone that should have cast Venus's first shadow. "Rocks don't have legs," you said, stepping forward. "But they have apprentices," one hissed, glaring. You retraced your steps, heart sinking. There, behind the maze granary, half buried in compost, was the errant rock, misplaced not by you, but by an elder who'd mistaken it for a nap cushion. You dusted it off, returned it to its place, and faced the crowd's silent judgment. Itsam arrived, his glare sharp enough to carve glyphs. "This marker stood for 80 cycles," he said, voice low. "Now, thanks to a napping fool, we recalibrate 3 charts and a moon table. At least we found it," you offered, shrinking. "Try losing the sun next," he grunted. "That'll impress me." The recalibration was a ritual of tedium. Strings, incense, and a ceremonial stick, feathered at one end for pomp, notched at the other for suffering. You squinted through shadows, aligning angles to a tree notch that no longer existed. Ixken insisted it was 1 arm's length west of the crooked bush, leaving you to marvel at how science survived such whimsy. By mid-afternoon, the marker stood restored, your dignity clinging by a thread. You headed to the caracol to record star positions, but Itsam blocked the door. "New assignment," he said, eyes glinting with mischief. "Rock organizer." "Wasn't I already—" you began. "Badly," he cut in. "Now it's official." This was no promotion, but punishment cloaked in purpose. You were handed a grid, each stone tied to a celestial event. Venus rising, lunar apogee, maize planting, even a dubious good dream day. As the world's first skyrock curator, you catalogued, aligned, and rotated them to prevent uneven sinking. And today, of course, was marker washing day, stones cleansed with sacred spring water, carried by hand. Ixken thrust a basket of gourds at you, her glare sharper than flint. "Don't spill." "I tripped on a turtle," you protested. "That turtle was sacred." You trekked to the spring, filled the gourds, and returned with the care of one ferrying divine broth. 1 gourd sloshed onto your sandal, which you declared blessed on instinct. Meket, the village cat, padded through the puddle, earning herself a new glyph as an omen. The priest sighed, sketching furiously. That evening, you collapsed onto your hammock under the half-roofed sky hut, reeking of wet stone and divine turtle. The stars blinked into view, the jaguar path, the white-bone snake, the hand of time. You sat up, chalk in hand, and sketched for no one but yourself. Venus's rising arc, Jupiter's hesitant blink behind a fish-shaped cloud, the eastward flight of bats. You didn't grasp it all, not yet, but the sky was no longer just stars. It was behavior, a living dance of light and shadow. It watched you, and you, at last, were learning to watch back, your chalk tracing the rhythm of a world that whispered its secrets to those who dared listen. The dawn erupted with a chorus of screams. Not the jagged wails of calamity, but a rhythmic, ceremonial cacophony that chilled you more than any jaguar's roar. You stumbled from your hammock, bleary-eyed, into the central plaza where the village shimmered in a riot of feathers and paint, every face etched with the fervent hope that the gods were listening. It was eclipse season, not yet upon you, but close, a shadow lurking in the stars' silent dance. Elder Itzum had declared the pattern begun, which meant screaming into the wind and hurling black beans at the sun for calibration. You were handed a bowl of beans and told to aim for the heavens. Symbolic, you asked, clutching the bowl. Ixkun, now resplendent in a moon priestess's feathered regalia, her scowl undimmed, replied, emotional. Your day became a whirlwind of ritual, sweeping a massive platform, painting glyphs with trembling precision, and wrestling a rope pulley system alongside 3 volunteers, a drum, and a basket-bound bird radiating divine indignation. You didn't ask why Itzam, lost in a pre-eclipse trance, hadn't blinked in hours, muttering date intervals while chewing bark, as if it held the cosmos's secrets. He pulled you aside, his eyes sharp as obsidian. We're testing your eclipse prediction. You froze. I haven't made one. You will, now. He pointed to a codex, its glyphs a labyrinth of snakes and spirals. When's the next lunar eclipse? I need an abacus, you whispered. You need a miracle, he said. You traced the chart, heart pounding, recalling the 173-day Saros cycle, a bat's ill-timed droppings on your last attempt, and a vague sense of lunar rhythm. 6 nights, you ventured. Itzum stared, silent, then walked away. Pass or fail, you couldn't tell. You prayed to both the sun and moon for good measure. That night, the plaza pulsed with incense and anticipation. A colossal drum rose by the temple steps, and you were assigned echo control, shouting back from a far wall to summon eternity's acoustics when the ritualist called for the moon. No pressure, just the weight of the cosmos. As moonrise neared, the clouds parted and the lunar disk began to fade, a slow curtain of shadow drawn across its silver glow. Gasps rippled through the crowd, drums thundered, and a faint, prone acolyte collapsed in awe. You realized with a jolt you'd been right. 6 nights, you'd nailed it. Itzam's gaze found you and he nodded. Once, a gesture as grand as a festival in his stoic lexicon, you barely savored it. Timing the eclipse was next, tracking its shadow with a wooden stick, a measuring line, and 3 overzealous teenagers using a turtle's crawl across a tile as a clock. You waved them off, took the readings yourself, hands steady, notes crisp, the codex's spirals suddenly legible. Then the crowd danced, a cosmic negotiation, not a celebration coaxing the moon's return. You joined, stomping and spinning with the grace of a singed tapir, dodging Ixkun's feathered cape and the now freed bird which perched smugly on the drum. When the moon emerged, whole and radiant, the village exhaled in soft applause, a quiet hymn of relief. You felt it, a settling in your chest, not just survival, but reverence, a shared awe woven through beans, birds, and bad dancing. Later, on the caracol's steps, you sat beside Itzam, embers glowing at your feet. Did I pass, you asked? He paused. You danced like a goat on fire. So no. You got the moon right, he said, shrugging. That's what matters. Under the wheeling stars, with the jungle's murmur and the faint tang of incense, you felt it. You were a Maya sky watcher, part of the sky's rhythm, even if that turtle remained deeply suspect. The dawn crept over the jungle with a teasing shimmer, as if Chaak were chuckling at your latest misstep, the air heavy with the promise of another day's trials. You woke with a back knotted like a poorly woven mat, one sandal missing, likely claimed by the Foot of Forgiveness cult, and a hazy memory of vowing to craft a cosmos from dried maize kernels. It was post-eclipse day, and in the village of stargazers that meant one thing: inventory. Itzam was already pacing the courtyard, muttering about misplaced star markers and a jaguar glyph for time now resembling a startled frog, its smudged lines an affront to the heavens. You tried to slip past, a shadow among the stones, but his voice pinned you like a dart. "You," he said, pointing. "Time to meet the Codex Keeper." Your stomach plummeted. The Codex Keeper was a legend, a figure whispered to have predicted his own birth and scolded a hurricane for tardiness. Itzam led you through a narrow corridor behind the temple library, where vines draped like judgmental eyebrows, and the air smelled of ink and ancient grudges. He knocked on a jaguar-carved door. It groaned open like a reluctant oracle. Inside, the chamber was cool and silent, its shelves laden with folded bark paper codices, shell bead calculations and feathers arranged like cryptic bookmarks. At the center sat the Codex Keeper, small and wrinkled, his robe older than the maize fields, his eyes peering at you like you were a prophecy gone awry. "You're the new one," he croaked. You nodded, throat tight. He pointed to a basin. "Wash your hands, twice." You scrubbed as if your soul hung in the balance, then returned to find him sliding a codex toward you with two gnarled fingers. "Don't breathe on it," he warned. You held your breath, heart pounding. The codex unfurled, its glyphs a dance of swirls, dots, and transforming creatures. A three-eyed jaguar, a moon deity spewing stars, red handprints beside a grid of black dots. "This, Kisam," he said, "is the eclipse cycle archive." "It's beautiful," you whispered, awestruck. "It's temperamental," he countered, a faint smile flickering. You traced a lunar path marked in increments of 20, spanning centuries, the patience of generations etched in ink. "How did you know where to start?" you asked. "We didn't," he said. We just kept watching." The phrase lodged in your chest like a star, taking root. Scholars still debate whether Mayan codices were science, spirituality, or both, but here, in the vine-draped sanctum, they felt like love letters to the cosmos, penned in light and time. The Codex Keeper handed you a blank bark sheet. "Your turn." You nearly swooned. Itzam nudged you. "Document the last eclipse. You were there, weren't you?" You sat, dipping a brush into ink, charcoal, water, crushed berries, and began, hands shaky, glyphs wobbling like a potato-shaped moon. Slowly, the rhythm took hold. You marked the shadow's start, midpoint, return. The Codex Keeper watched, grunting occasionally, snorting once, but finally, miraculously, he nodded. Your chest swelled with absurd pride. Then he slapped another codex before you. "Translate this." "Now?" you squeaked. "Yes. I can barely spell moon." He handed you a reference sheet. "Learn it in 3 tenses." You groaned, but a secret thrill sparked within. The glyphs weren't random. They wove phases, alignments, emotions, dawn and hope in one stroke, shadow as fear or festival depending on its tilt. Time dissolved as you worked, ink staining your fingers, robe and face, a grin creeping unbidden. Ixkun arrived with food and her trademark sarcasm. "You look like you wrestled the night and lost," she said, eyeing your ink-smeared chaos.
"I'm documenting the divine spiral," you mumbled.
"Sure, and I'm a star." She left the food, her frown softening. By day's end, you'd logged 2 eclipses, charted 5 months of lunar angles, and ruined a robe with ink stains resembling disappointed deities. But you didn't care. In your hands was a record of time, a story of watching, waiting, whispering to the sky until it whispered back. You left the chamber exhausted, triumphant, the jungle's hum cradling your steps. Itsam clapped your shoulder. "Not bad." You beamed. "You're still on compost duty tomorrow," he added. "Because of the turtle?" You sighed.
"No," he said, smirking. "Because of you."
"Fair." The dawn slunk over the jungle with a conspiratorial glow, as if Chaak himself were snickering at your latest cosmic blunder. You woke with a back knotted from compost duty, one sandal missing, likely stolen by a zealot of the Foot of Forgiveness, and a hazy vow to craft a cosmos from maize kernels. You didn't dodge the compost heap, it was your initiation, a gritty sacrament. You shoveled, cursed the stars under your breath, then rinsed your hands and returned to the heavens. You were in too deep now, seduced by the thrill of ink, the shiver of a glyph aligning with a moonrise. You were one of them. But today was feast day, a riot of music, dance, and an alarming quantity of roasted iguana. It meant ritual astronomy before the village, and Itsam, with the gravity of a man passing his legacy, handed you the ceremonial stick. "Point it," he said, "at the sky at the right moment, don't drop it." Manageable, you thought, until Ixkun sidled up, her moon priestess feathers glinting. "Chant the number glyphs, loudly, backwards."
"What if I mess up?" you asked. "Traditionally, lightning," she said, smirking. "Probably just shame."
The plaza buzzed with paper suns, constellation-shaped tortillas, and children in star masks. A leashed jaguar glowered, a monkey drummed with trained fervor. The mood was festive until your moment arrived. The music hushed, eyes locked on you, the priest's invocation a low hum. You stepped forward, raised the stick and chanted, voice cracking. 13, 12, 11. A child giggled. You pressed on. 10, 9. Banana. Ixkun's cough was a thunderclap. 8, you corrected, sweat pooling in uncharted places. The sun glared, judging your diction. 7, 6, 5, you steadied, aiming for the shadow to hit the carved spiral at 1.
4, 3, 2, 1.
The shadow missed by a handspan.
Silence stretched, vast as the cosmos. Then improbably the monkey clapped.
Your soul shriveled. Itsam approached, studying the spiral, the stick, then you. "Did you rotate the marker last night?" he asked. "To clean under it," you admitted. "Ants." "Did you rotate it back?"
You stared. He stared. Ixkun whispered, "You absolute cosmological disaster."
You returned the stick, apologizing to gods, priest, and the offended jaguar. But the crowd didn't jeer, they chuckled. The chief raised his clay cup. "At least the moon knows its path," he said. Laughter rippled, and the moment passed like a cloud. On the temple steps you nursed a maize wrap, pride dented but intact. Ixcan sat beside you, smirking. You'll be a legend, the apprentice who lost the sun.
You groaned, but a spark glowed within. In a world of precise predictions, you'd erred and lived. The village embraced you still. Scholars debate whether Mayan rituals prized science or symbolism, numbers or community. Tonight you felt both, a shared sky binding all.
As the sun dipped, painting the jungle gold, you returned to the caracol. Itzam scribbled, unperturbed. I recalibrated the marker, you said. It's aligned. He nodded. It was off by a quarter rotation.
I noticed.
He eyed you. Next feast day you chant again.
Really, you asked, stunned.
Just skip the banana. You laughed, and miracle of miracles, he chuckled, a sound rare as a comet. You sat beside him, watching the light fade, stars emerging like shy oracles. 13, you whispered. 12, he replied. Together you began again, the sky's rhythm humming through you both. The jungle dawn crept in with a sly, knowing hush, as if Shayak were whispering secrets to the stars, and you woke with the now familiar ache of a sky watcher's life. Saw back, one sandal still missing, and a lingering dream of maize kernel constellations. You'd begun to grasp the rhythm, not just of the heavens' cryptic loops, but of the people, Itzam's grudging grunts of approval, Ixcan's veiled kindness beneath her barbed insults, and the codex keeper's shift from calling you that regrettable intern to the slightly tolerable one with the shaky pen. You were part of their orbit now, a wobbling star in their celestial dance.
But tonight the sky held its breath.
It began while you and Ixcan pored over lunar tables in the caracol's cool shadows. She traced a curve, her finger pausing, brow furrowing. That's odd, she muttered. What? You asked, gnawing a mango pit you hoped wasn't sacred.
The Venus intervals, they're, off by 2 days.
You glanced at the chart. She was right. Venus, the sky's most punctual wanderer, was misbehaving, early, late, or something stranger. Did someone move the Venus stone again, you asked, clinging to hope.
No, she said, checked twice.
You scoured the eclipse chart you'd helped copy, its moon-shaped glyphs still upright, if a bit potato-like. They were correct, but misaligned with past records. Cloud error, you ventured. That turtle again? She shook her head. This feels bigger. Itzam appeared in the doorway, clutching a palm scroll, his face like a man who'd seen a god stumble. Observatory now, he said, voice taut. You ran, heart pounding, to the caracol's central chamber, where the village's sky watchers gathered in a rare assembly. Even the codex keeper had climbed the steps, wheezing but resolute, his ancient robe trailing like a comet's tail. On the stone platform lay the master chart, a relic fit for kings' tombs, its spirals and glyphs humming with centuries of vigilance. Itzam pointed to a central spiral. This cycle, we've predicted something new. You leaned in, a triple alignment, moon, sun, Venus, stacked like divine glyphs in a cosmic codex. The math held, the timeline aligned, but its meaning, a mystery. Scholars still debate whether the Maya saw such alignments as harbingers of doom or transformation, but in this chamber the silence was heavy as obsidian. 6 days, Itzam said. Ixcan whispered, Do we tell the village? The codex keeper grunted, Do we understand it? All eyes turned to you. Not because you were wise, but because you were unburdened by decades of certainty, still naive enough to ask the forbidden. What if it's not doom, you said. Maybe it's a signal, a beginning. They stared as if you'd kicked a sacred turtle. Itsam folded his arms. Or an ending of something ancient. More data was needed, and so you spent 2 days atop the temple roof of madness, logging star positions while mosquitoes the size of macaws feasted on your blood. The sky teased, Venus flared one night, mirrored in a clay bowl, then vanished the next. The moon wobbled, the sun set a blink too soon. You scribbled, revised, erased, redrew, your dreams swirling with glyphs. The night before the alignment, clouds rolled in, thick, relentless, drowning the stars. The village gathered anyway, drums thrumming, torches flickering, the air taut with unseen forces. You sat on the temple steps, wrapped in a damp robe, staring at a blank sky. No stars, no moon, no Venus, just the pulse of ritual and the weight of expectation. Itsam settled beside you, silent until he spoke. This happened once before, long ago. The sky darkened for days. Crops failed. They said the gods hid.
And then, you asked, shivering. The stars returned, he said, shrugging, but not in the same order.
You stared upward, drums echoing, the crowd singing softly, then a fleeting gap in the clouds, Venus, moon, sun's faint halo, stacked, perfect, gone. You gasped. Itsam nodded. We'll record it, he said, as best we can. That night, you inked a new glyph, a triple spiral, bold and centered. Its meaning eluded you, as it had your ancestors. But it felt like a whisper from the sky, a secret shared in shadow and starlight. You were part of its rhythm now, a keeper of time's quiet song. The morning after the triple alignment, the village lay cloaked in a weary hush, not the awestruck silence of divine reverence, nor the trembling quiet of cosmic dread, but the bone-tired stillness of a people who danced through a celestial revelry and now swept maize husks from the plaza, wondering if the gods had slipped away without a farewell. You were first in the caracol, the sun barely cresting the jungle, lighting the oil lamp with hands still smudged from last night's ink. The codex lay open, its triple spiral glyph gleaming, audacious, impossible, yet real. You poured bitter cacao, a brew of regret and wet clay, and waited for Itsam. He arrived like a star on schedule, eyes red-rimmed, arms laden with scrolls, lips tight as a sealed tomb. New theory, he said, voice low. The alignment matches the rebirth glyph cycle from Temple B. You blinked. The frog with the baby sun god? He nodded. It's not a warning, it's a restart.
Of what, you asked, wary.
Time, he said, as if announcing rain. A cosmic reset over cacao. Delightful. Ixkun joined, dragging a crate of lunar discs and star maps reeking of damp jungle and crushed dreams. Guess who spent all night aligning Venus with that frog glyph, she muttered, flopping beside you. You ventured, sipping? The monkey, she snapped. Of course I am. Together you pored over the codex, spirals, patterns, the number 584, Venus's cycle, woven into carvings, temple stairs, even a ceremonial stew recipe, astronomy or culinary flair, you couldn't tell. A story emerged, a rhythm, a clue. Then the chief entered, trailed by elders, artisans, scribes, and the knife sharpener with unnerving zeal. He pointed at you. You saw the sky last night. A glimpse, you admitted, heart sinking. Good, explain it. To the village, sundown. You stared at Itzam, who found a wall crack suddenly fascinating. Ixcan whispered, "Great honor, or they're prepping you for sacrifice if it flops." You spent the day not preparing words, but fussing, brushing your hair with a fishbone, polishing your sandals, practicing a wise but humble face in a bowl's reflection. At sundown, the plaza brimmed, firelit, monkey drumming, jaguar sporting a new collar. You stepped onto the platform, heart thundering like ritual drums. "Last night," you began, voice wavering, "the sky showed us something unseen for generations." You wove the tale, moon, sun, Venus, the spiral, the frog, briefly, the cloud's fleeting gap, the gasp. Time paused, turned, whispered, "Start over." You cited Itzam's theories, Ixcan's equations, the Codex Keeper's cryptic haiku about moonlight and sandals. You ended, "The stars don't always explain themselves, but they show up." That might be enough. That might. Silence held, then broke. A single clap, then a wave, gentle, respectful, as if the village trusted you to speak for the sky. The chief nodded. "Well spoken." "Thank you," you said. "The monkey liked it," he added. "Rare."
You took the win.
As the fire dimmed, you lay beneath the stars, Ixcan beside you, Itzam grumbling nearby about a centuries-old constellational misprint. "Will we see it again?" you whispered.
"Maybe not in this life," she said, "but someone will." You nodded. Above the stars blinked, silent, ancient, waiting.
The dawn broke over the jungle with a mischievous glint, as if Chaak had scorched the village's tamales just to herald another chaotic Tuesday. You were yanked from sleep by the acrid tang of burnt maize and a frantic shout. "Where's the frog with the calendar shell?" A phrase so ordinary here it barely raised your pulse. But today was no mere Tuesday. Itzam, his eyes glinting like polished obsidian, thrust a ceremonial robe into your arms. "You've earned it," he said, voice gruff but warm. The robe was a physical burden, heavy with beads and glyphs stitched so densely it could fend off a jaguar's claw. You nearly buckled under its weight, but your grin rivaled the sun. Ixcan smirked, her moon priestess feathers catching the light. "A walking mural," she said. "Finally you look like one of us." She wasn't wrong. Today's task transcended stargazing or glyph scribbling. You were summoned to the Temple of the Nine Heavens, a sacred enigma deep in the jungle, where even Ixcan had never set foot. The trek was a trial, hours through tangled paths, robe clinging like a damp curse, sandals choked with leaf mulch, mosquitoes waging a love affair with your ankles. By the time you reached the temple, you resembled a roasted squash draped in ancient couture. The temple loomed, a dark stone pyramid piercing the clouds, its 9 tiers a ladder of cosmic bureaucracy, each level a heaven with its own divine ledger. The top held secrets you weren't yet privy to. Instead, you entered at the 3rd tier, where sky watchers communed with the gods' celestial moods. 2 elders, Chan and Bak, awaited, ancient as the stars, their faces carved with time's own glyphs. They offered no greetings, only a tablet and a gesture toward a ceiling shaft aligned with the morning sun.
What do I do? You asked, clutching the tablet.
Catch time, Chan said.
In a bowl, you ventured, half serious. In your head, Back grunted.
They explained. Once a year, the sun's beam through the shaft illuminated a single glyph, shifting with the calendar. This year, it had faltered for weeks. You sat, waiting, devouring a mango, peel and all, as a spider with impeccable posture judged you. Just as hope faded, a fiery beam sliced through, striking a coiled snake glyph, symbol of time, change, cycles, and, oddly, digestive woes. You scribbled, hands trembling, tracing the glyph as if it might uncoil and slither away. Itsam's theories, Ixkun's logs, the Codex Keeper's cryptic stew omens, all converged. The sky was resetting. You raced back, robe flapping, to find Ixkun staggering under a stack of tablets. "You'll want to see this," she gasped. Her lunar logs, your snake glyph, the triple spiral, the sun shaft, they aligned, heralding a new calendar cycle. Scholars debate whether the Maya saw these shifts as literal resets or poetic sighs, but in your inky hands it felt real, a cosmic breath, a call to begin anew. The village erupted in preparation, not for apocalypse, but for renewal. Chants rose, feasts spilled across the plaza, and a sacred bat impersonator took their role with unsettling zeal. You were tasked with drawing the first glyph of the new age. You hesitated, then dipped your brush in fresh ink, tracing a simple spiral. 3 curves, balanced, centered. Ixkun nodded. The Codex Keeper smiled. Itsam for once said, "Well done." That night, on the temple roof, robe loosened, fingers stained, heart brimming, you lay beneath a sky scrubbed clean of doubt. "Your turn," you whispered to the stars. They didn't answer, but they twinkled, ancient, knowing, as if plotting their next move. The dawn crept over the jungle with a conspiratorial hush, as if Sha'ak were orchestrating a celestial jest, and you woke sprawled on a stone slab, neck twisted at a 45-degree angle. A beetle perched on your face like a tiny, imperious god. This, it seemed, was the toll for chasing cosmic truths. The temple stirred, off-key hymns to the maze god clashed with the rasp of a calendar stone being sharpened. A mystery you'd long ceased questioning. You, newly anointed glyph slinger of the new cycle, were expected to keep the heavens rhythm spinning no matter how many beetles claimed your nose. Itsam summoned you before you could rinse the jungle from your eyes. "Bring your charts," he barked, "and your spine. You'll need both." In the caracol, he hunched over a stone slab, muttering as Ixkun arrived, her face a blend of thrill and regret, like one who'd deciphered a star map but sat on a cactus in the process. She slapped down a carving. "Meteor trails," she announced. You blinked. "That's not a thing." "It is now," she said, pointing to a diagram resembling a centipede in a tutu. She was right. The sky had been shedding sparks, glittering arcs you'd mistaken for fog's trickery. Meteor showers, she called them, fiery debris, not stars. "Should we panic?" you asked. Itsam shrugged. "Did any land?" "No," Ixkun said. "Then we panic tomorrow." You climbed the temple steps nightly, a lonely piñata under the stars, tracing arcs, counting flashes, cursing clouds, and shooing owls that dared block your view. Scholars debate whether the Maya logged meteor showers as omens or anomalies, But your zigzag glyphs, tucked in codex margins, matched cycles every 52 years, now unfolding before you. You shared this with the village. Some were awed, others swore the sky was leaking, and one elder proclaimed the return of the serpent of sparks, likely to dodge maize grinding. You didn't scoff. You drew the serpent, coiling and star-flecked, inking it into the codex as a testament to beauty that didn't kill you.
But something else stirred. Ixkun noticed it first. The stars are twitching. You nodded, thought it was just exhaustion. No, she said, they're blinking out of order.
Not vanishing, pulsing, as if tapped by an unseen hand. You recorded intervals matching them to Venus, the moon, even the monkey's erratic drumming. Nothing fits until you find a faded glyph in an old eclipse scroll, a moon-eyed figure ringed by timed dots. It matched perfectly. You showed Itzam. His eyebrows lifted a fraction, a cosmic cartwheel. Who drew this? You asked. Before my time, he said, possibly before theirs.
So what does it mean? You pressed.
Ixkun answered, slow and sure, we're not the first to see this. The realization settled like a stone. You, the village, the sky, part of a cycle older than memory, a signal woven into time's fabric. The codex keeper, peering at your notes, uttered a word so rare you nearly swooned. Interesting. You carved the blinking pattern into stone, inked it on scrolls, and, briefly, painted it on the observatory door until corrected.
That night, climbing to your hammock, spine crooked, mind whirling, you gazed upward. The blinking had stopped, vanished. You blinked back, waiting. Then one slow, deliberate pulse.
You didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or pen a polite plea to the heavens for consistency. Instead, you lay back, whispering, "You win," and drifted off, ink-stained fingers clutching a stone you didn't recall picking up. Tomorrow you'd decode it. For now, you let the stars blink in peace. The dawn slipped over the jungle with a sly, teasing glow, as if Chaak were orchestrating a prank only the stars understood. You woke on a stone slab, neck kinked, a beetle claiming your face like a tiny landlord, clutching a stone etched with a lizard in a yogic pose. You might have laughed, but after witnessing a ceremonial turkey dance mistaken for a planetary alignment, you half believed the lizard held cosmic wisdom. Ixkun shook you awake, her urgency sharp as a flint blade. "It's back," she whispered, eyes wide. "The blinking," you mumbled, blinking grit from your eyes. She nodded. Not random this time. In the caracol, chaos reigned. Itzam sprawled 6 charts across the slab, muttering like a man possessed. The codex keeper grumbled to himself, a lover of his own paranoia, and cacao stained the lunar calendar, a sacrilege nobody acknowledged. The stars pulsed in pairs, 2 blinks, pause, 1 blink, 3 blinks, long pause, repeat. A pattern undeniable hummed in your bones. Ixkun sketched intervals with frenetic precision. Itzam jabbed at the Venus column. "It aligns here, barely. The cadence matches." You hesitated. "Is Venus talking?" He shrugged. "Or listening." "Planets with ears. Perfect." The codex keeper muttered about an old stone basin by the cenote, toad-infested and forgotten. You packed notes, ink, and misplaced optimism, neglecting swamp-worthy sandals. Hours later, you stood ankle-deep in mud, swatting mosquitoes, staring into a mossy basin carved with stars and swirls, and a glyph eerily like your 6-cycle-old haircut. Its inner ring mirrored last night's pulses, pairs of dots, a cosmic code. Ixgun pointed. That's our pattern. Coincidence, you ventured. So's gravity, she shot back. Back at the temple, Itsam wove the basin sequence into the chart. Pulses flanked by glyphs, hand, eye, serpent, maize cob, repeating every fourth line. Like a sentence, Ixgun murmured. Scholars debate whether Mayan glyphs were symbolic or phonetic, but these felt like both, a story in starlight. The codex keeper chuckled, 4 teeth gleaming. It's a joke. He pointed to an upside-down bat clutching a banana. Trickster texts. The gods mocking us. Mocking or warning? Ixgun asked. Is there a difference? He said, dozing off. You worked late, translating glyphs, decoding blinks. A phrase emerged. When the serpent swallows the spark, time will hide its face. You read it aloud, voice trembling. Silence fell. Itsam, soft as a shadow, said, That's an eclipse. Charts confirmed it. Venus aligned, the moon crossing the sun in 6 days, a rare solar eclipse. Paired with the blinking, the spirals, the message, it felt like more than math. Something was coming. Preparations began, not frantic, but focused. Offerings piled, scrolls copied, temples dusted. You and Ixgun carved a new calendar stone, its center a blank circle for the unknown. On the eve, the village gathered, the codex keeper sporting a polished skull necklace to block bad metaphysical vibes. Ixgun clutched her lunar disk, muttering, If this fails, it's the monkey's fault. Itsam smirked. If it succeeds, still the monkey. The sun rose, sky clear, stars fading. The moon crept forward, dimming the light like a shuttered lamp, shadows coiling like serpents. The crowd gasped. In that heartbeat of darkness, the stars blinked 1, 2, pause, 3, long pause, then nothing. You clutched your notes, whispering, What now? Ixgun didn't answer. The sun returned, light spilling like a promise kept. The village exhaled and you stood, ink-stained, awestruck, part of a cycle older than stone, wondering if the gods had laughed or listened. The light surged back, flooding the stone plazas and painted walls as if the gods, with a sheepish chuckle, had flicked to the celestial torch alight once more. The crowd gazed skyward, some weeping softly, others blinking like lizards bewildered by their own eyelids. You exhaled, a long chest-squeezing breath laced with relief, fear, and the faint aftertaste of roasted squash. The eclipse had passed, but its echoes lingered like a half-remembered prophecy. Ixgun sank beside you, legs folded, her face a mask of wry calm. Politest end of the world yet, she said. You nodded, thought the sun might cough and vanish for good. Itsam ambled over, chewing what might have been a sacred root or a particularly bold beetle. No fires, no frog rain, no jaguar stampede, he said, almost wistful.
You wanted a stampede? You asked, eyebrow arched. No, he said, just easier to explain.
The blinking stars, precise, deliberate, mathematical, hinted at a message, a cosmic game of peekaboo, played by unseen watchers. You spent the afternoon compiling notes, Ixgun sketching eclipse phases with spirals and sunburn-laced sarcasm, while Itsam cross-referenced blink patterns with ancient inscriptions. The Codex keeper hummed, muttering enigmas like, "When the moon smiles back, you blink first." The phrase from the Codex, when the serpent swallows the spark, time will hide its face, haunted you. In a damaged scroll you found its echo. And when it re-emerges, the sky will carry memory. Memory? Ixkun frowned. The sky's recording us. Maybe, you said, or it never forgets. That night the chief summoned you standing beside the maze statue, his stance poised between knighting you or tossing you off a pyramid. "You've been busy," he said, arms crossed.
Supervised, you clarified. He grunted. The people want meaning.
You inhaled, steadying. The sky blinks but doesn't close its eyes. Time loops, echoes, remembers. We're part of it, all of us. He stared, then nodded. "Carve it with a snake." "Naturally," you said, bowing. The village hummed with gentle awe. No fear, just a quiet sense of being seen by the cosmos. Children traced stars in the dust. Elders sketched patterns with walking sticks. Even the jaguar, now adorned with a shell necklace, seemed pensive. The Codex keeper handed you a blank scroll. "Back up," he said, "in case the stars ghost us again." You laughed. His smile hinted you'd passed a test. Later, Ixkun found you sketching eclipse-inspired glyphs on the temple wall. "What now?" she whispered. "We write, we remember, we watch," you said. "Do we understand?" You paused. "Maybe it's like hearing a dream halfway through." Itsam interrupted, waving a smudged chart. "Found the next pattern." You groaned. "We're not done?" He grinned. "When are we ever—" You gathered your tools, fresh ink, clear night, stars shimmering with secrets. You didn't control them, but you could read them. For now, that was enough. The dusk crept over the jungle with a sly, conspiratorial shimmer, as if Chaak were whispering riddles to the twilight, and you sat, nibbling a tamale so chewy it might have been woven from reeds, your latest star glyphs spread before you like a map of dreams. Ixkun burst into the caracol, her eyes alight with the urgency of cosmic news or a serpent in the archives. "It's looping!" she gasped.
You dropped your tamale. The snake?
"No, the blinks, the star pulses, same sequence, same timing." Within moments, you, Itsam, and the Codex keeper huddled over charcoal charts, torchlight flickering across spirals and mysterious cacao stains that seemed to predict maize prices. The star pulses, those deliberate, maddening blinks from before the eclipse, were repeating 1, 2, pause, 3, long pause. Itsam tapped his chin. "The stars are caught in a loop?" "Or sending one," Ixkun said, a chant in light. The Codex keeper grumbled, "Or a test. Repeat it wrong, and the sky swats you." That night you lay beneath the heavens, a bowl of coals warming your side, ink stick in hand. Each stellar blink met your soft tap on the stone, a quiet echo to the sky's rhythm. A wild thought sparked. What if they're waiting for an answer? You recorded the pattern, backwards, upside down, mirrored, searching for a hidden message. Ixkun joined, assigning glyphs to pulses, and together you found not words, but a motif. Spirals within spirals, like the calendar's own heartbeat sung in starlight.
It's not a story, Ixkun murmured. It's a drumbeat, cosmic.
Scholars debate whether the Maya penned music as we know it, but this felt like a melody, a lullaby, or a warning cloaked in light. The codex keeper, humming an unfamiliar tune, sketched the sequence as a coiled snake, mouth open, tail curling back. Itzam squinted. Reminds me of those riddles from childhood. What has no end, no beginning, and returns yearly? Time, you sighed. The calendar, a tortilla left unattended.
Exactly, he grinned. The celestial tortilla.
Ixkun groaned, but laughed. You proposed a grand plan, a stone wheel vast enough to walk, each glyph marking a pulse, a star map you could feel. Days passed in a blur of carving, the village joining in, children hauling pebbles, elders offering ink, someone bringing soup sworn to sharpen the mind. Your wrists ached, Ixkun inked your cuts, Itzam muttered judgments, but when the wheel was done, carved, polished, radiant, you stood back, awestruck. It was a story in glimmers, a question in silence. That night, you walked the wheel, tapping glyphs in rhythm with the stars. 1, 2, pause, 3, wait. The sky answered. 1, 2, pause, 3, long pause. You froze, dizzy with possibility. Did the stars hear? Ixkun looked shaken. Itzam smug. The codex keeper dubbed it the sky reply. You marked the date, inking a final glyph at the wheel's center, a spiral encircling a handprint, not yours, but ancient, faint, waiting on the stone before you began. It belonged now to the rhythm, to the night. You slept on the temple roof, wheel beside you, stars above, a question pulsing like a half-remembered drumbeat. What happens when time answers back? The dawn stole across the jungle with a quiet, knowing grace, as if Chak had draped a veil of dew over the world to soften its waking. You stirred on the temple roof, arms slick with moisture, face cradled in a nest of scrolls, the stone wheel beside you humming faintly in your bones. The sky stretched wide, serene, yet heavy with an unspoken gaze, as if it had caught you staring and now stared back. The stars had faded, drowned by the sun's approach, but last night's final blink, a response, not just a mirror, lingered like a glyph etched in your chest. Ixkun found you an hour later, her hair a tangle of tree fuzz, eyes bleary but sharp. You look like a papaya's revenge, she said, not unkindly.
Knowledge attacked me, you muttered, rubbing your eyes.
She sat beside the wheel, its spirals glinting faintly. What do we do with this?
Archive it, Itzam said, materializing like a lizard in sandals. Let the next cycle puzzle it out.
Will they? You asked. He shrugged. We did. They might. The morning passed in a ritual of preservation, sealing blink patterns, codices, even the ceremonial tortilla jest. You penned a final note, simple and hopeful. We saw the sky, we blinked back, and maybe... It blinked twice. The codex keeper, in a rare, non-sarcastic turn, offered to store the wheel in a chamber beneath the temple. Together you carried it down, each step a quiet lullaby, laying it to rest like a child tucked into the earth. As you sealed the chamber, he chuckled. In another life, this'd make a fine clock. Ixkun raised an eyebrow. What's a clock? He winked. Exactly. At dusk, the village gathered, not for ritual or fear, but to watch, to trace the flickers and pauses of the god's silent code. You You sprawled on the temple steps, legs stretched, arms behind your head, tamarind tea warm in your hands. Ixcan whispered, "Will they blink again?" You smiled. They never stopped. Itsam, grumbling nearby about a misprinted star chart, muttered, "You're romanticizing photonic refraction." "And you said softly, "are allergic to wonder." He didn't argue. The stars emerged one by one, like shy guests at an uninvited feast. Orion's belt, Venus rising, a dot above the temple's spire. It didn't blink, it pulsed. Once, pause, twice. You breathed in, exhaled, and let it be. No chisel, no notes, just tea, warmth, and the sky's quiet story.
You told yours. Now you listened.
As the night deepened, stars settled into their ancient lullaby. The jungle hummed its midnight song. The stone beneath you cooled, the wheels slept below. Its spirals a silent promise. You might never know who or what blinked from above, but it no longer mattered. You'd blinked back, a fleeting mark in time's vast codex. That was the gift of history, to whisper across centuries, needing no reply. Wherever you are, cradled in a bed, curled on a couch, or bathed in a lamp's glow, let yourself rest, let your breath echo the sky's rhythm, your heartbeat a pulse in the universe's strange pattern. Someone somewhere might notice. Maybe they already have. Good night, star reader. Sleep well, dream in spirals.